If
Yeah,
you're a perfectionist and you're trying to decide what to do, I would definitely go the live route.
we are talking with Stephen Bailey. He has worked as a touring sound engineer for the last 16 years, and he's worked as a contractor with Waves, Digico, and Direct Out.
I love like a big sound, so sometimes I'll sacrifice a little bit of clarity for energy.
He has worked on stuff at Passion City Church for 2.5 years, and he is currently the front of house mixer for Chris Tomlin.
I enjoy those like kind of high stress environments in a really weird way. When it comes to my work, I'm very much a perfectionist and like to a fault. I definitely will always listen to the recording. You should have an idea and know what to expect, just so you're not flying blind.
If they were to deep dive and get really good at one thing, where would you have them start?
The answer to that is I've always been attracted to the live sound world, but if you have like a front of house guy who's just not on the same page, all of that work is basically for nothing. So what I like to do is I like to take what people are doing on stage and just literally amplify it without changing it too much. The source has to sound good. And if one of those things does not sound good, the whole mix is going to suffer.
Do you listen to the original recording and try to match, or do you just kind of start from scratch?
That's a great question, too. Those are good questions, actually.
Yeah.
So for me personally,
Welcome to the Creative Tides podcast, where expert insights flows into everyday creative spaces. We bring you conversations with leaders, innovators, and artists, making high-level ideas accessible and practical for your local context. Discover more episodes and upcoming events at www.creative-tides.com. We're glad you're here.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today. We are talking with Stephen Bailey. He has worked as a touring sound engineer for the last 16 years, and he's worked as a contractor with Waves, Digico, and Direct Out. He has worked on stuff at Passion City Church for 2.5 years, and he is currently the front of house mixer for Chris Tomlin, and is sort of has been on tour, a little bit of a break, and then has Christmas tours coming up. So thanks so much for being with us, Stephen. Excited to talk with you today.
yeah, thanks, Ashley. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Anything you want to add to that brief bio? Anything you want to share about who you are? Kind of like an overview of your background.
That kind of, I mean, sums it up. I'm pretty low key. But yeah, I started, I kind of came from like being playing, being a musician, playing in bands and stuff like that. And can then kind of, uh, became more of a nerd as time went on. Less cool, more of a nerd as I got older and kind of ventured into the tech production side of things. So, but yeah,
So what instruments
and I
did
like
you start with?
I started playing drums. So I started playing drums long, long time ago. Started playing like in church, like in our youth bands and like in our main service. And then played at school. I never did marching band in high school. I was always caught between like marching band and athletics, even though I didn't really play a lot of sports. But I never really quite went that route. But then I did play in like a lot of like, garage bands and, you know, rock bands and stuff in high school. And then I played in like a touring band for like 7 years. So that kind of like, that was kind of where everything came from and originated, as far as the whole music entertainment industry side of things. So yeah, but here I am, not very cool and pretty old. So
So how did you transition from being a drummer to being a sound tech? Were you always interested in sound, or did that sort of shift as time went on?
so going like way back to like growing up and playing drums in church, I kind of split the time between doing that and also playing, like doing sound. So I kind of I split time doing both. I definitely enjoyed both. I can't really say honestly I enjoyed one over the other. Um, but as time kind of went on, I had been playing in this touring band. I did do sound a lot on the side, just for income, because it was a great way to make money. Um, you know, we weren't making a ton of money in the band I was playing with. We were kind of always reinvesting it. So it was a great way to kind of, stay in line with what I was kind of good at and what I knew well. Between playing drums and just mixing, doing sound. I was always doing live events and playing concerts and shows and stuff. So yeah, I kind of grew from there, and I started doing sound more and more. More opportunities came. Honestly, God opened a ton of doors there, which I look back on and see very clearly. So I just walked through those doors and kind of kept doing it, and then I just ended up doing it full time, doing sound.
Yeah. What were some of your maybe band inspirations growing up, but also like, did you follow any professional front of house engineers, or like have a certain style maybe, or a genre where you're like, this is when I mix, like, this is what I'm going for. This is the sound.
That's a great question. Honestly, no one's really ever asked me that. Um, I never had any there were never any engineers that were I was dialed in with. But then again, there were really never any musicians I was dialed in with. I was just kind of I loved certain bands, for sure. And I loved that, but I wasn't I never followed I couldn't tell you four drummers' names, honestly, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Um, Stylistically, I don't know. I loved, man, I grew up on big sounding bands. I love a big sound. So, bands like Oasis and U2, Coldplay, those are way up there for me. And then, stuff like The Killers, and then even Third Eye Blind and stuff like that. That's the kind of music I grew up on. So, when I mix, or when I, stylistically, everybody's, can be quite different, and mixing is so subjective, right? It sounds like this, or, everybody, there's no really right or wrong way to mix music. So you do ask a very interesting question that not many people ask, as far as influences, what do you mix stylistically and stuff. So I'd have to just say a very big sound. Sometimes I'll sacrifice a little bit of clarity for energy. I like dynamics. I hate it. I'm not a fan of just it being at 100% on stun the whole concert. I really like it. Going to in a show, or even just experiencing it. If I'm buying tickets to go to a concert, I want it to be a journey, a ebb and flow, and dynamically up and down. And that's volume 2. And that's, energy, really intense, huge, amazing moments. And then very chill, super stripped back, very personal, moments. I like to I like to experience that. And that's definitely a target that I aim for when I'm working professionally and doing, mixing front of house.
That's really interesting. So are you also involved? So right now you're touring with Chris Tomlin. Are you also involved with the studio recording side, or are you just the live shows?
I'm not really involved. I haven't been involved so much in his recording and his engineering his records. I have been mixing though, a good bit of his live, the live recording stuff. We've done some Apple Music releases lately. There's been a lot of content for YouTube and stuff that has been put out from him, even through Capitol and stuff, his record company. And I have been mixing some of those. So I really do enjoy that. I usually I'll usually do a live, if it's his live band doing it. He's, been very gracious and asked me if I would be interested to mix some of that material. So that's been really cool. And I really do enjoy that. Studio like a studio cut album is not really like my forte.
Okay.
I'm just not quite as good at it, honestly. Like, I mean, there's other engineers who probably mix it better. I know who would mix it better than me for sure. I just didn't grow up. Like, I did intern in a studio like a long time ago, like when I was like almost, I mean, out of high school, basically. And that was a great experience, but I learned that studio life wasn't really my vibe.
Okay.
I don't know. It's a very different pace. It's a very different, a lot of the same, fundamentals of audio and, miking techniques and engineering. A lot of it is very similar, but a lot of it is also very different. And generally speaking, I feel like people will kind of go one way or the other. As far as like audio engineers, you can be a studio engineer. Usually studio engineers don't really hit the road. There's definitely exceptions, but I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think for me, and I don't know if a lot of people are this way, there's this assumption where if you can run sound live, then you can automatically take something to the studio level and mix and master it and produce it in that setting. But I guess that's not necessarily always the case.
Yeah, it's definitely not usually the case. Like, it's a pretty different world. And there's a lot we could talk about, which we won't right now, that goes really deep into that. But yeah, generally speaking, like I've always strayed from I've always been attracted to the live sound world. It's where the stress, like there's something about like the I don't know. I enjoy those like kind of high stress environments in a really weird way.
Yeah.
So studio is a little boring.
It makes sense. And I could see too, like the studio can be really tedious and monotonous because you're often like punching into the same part like over and over and over. And whereas with the live shows, you have people in the room and there's energy and there's that risk of, okay, this is a live band and they have to play the parts right, but I also have to mix it right. And so, yeah, way more excitement maybe, although I think it's exciting to be in a studio, but it's a different type of excitement, different pace for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And someone like me too, when it comes to my work, I'm very much a perfectionist and like to a fault. I should probably be on medicine for it, even though I'm not. But like a studio setting, like where you can like go back and like retake and like mix and like spend as much time as you need on it is like problematic because I'll just spend way too much time on it. Whereas like a live show, it's like, okay, this is what we have. Bam, we're done. Great. Move on. Yeah. It like forces you to do that. But So if you're a perfectionist and you're trying to decide what to do, I would definitely go the live route.
Yes, I am very much that way too.
Yeah.
So going back to kind of your method of mixing in the live shows, if you're not involved in the studio side, so often bands are touring, and this is maybe different with like the worship music world, but even so, like with Chris Tomlin, like he has studio albums of his worship songs, and then he's taking them in a live context. So you're mixing more for kind of the dynamic journey. Do you listen to the original recording and try to match, or do you just kind of start from scratch and go off of energy and feel and what seems right for you?
Before we jump back into today's conversation, we just want to say that we're so glad that you're here with us. And today's conversation is sponsored by us, Creative Tides, and by you. This show exists to bring expertise locally, real voices, real insights, and practical wisdom into your local creative context. As a nonprofit, everything that Creative Tides does is made possible by people who believe in that mission. If this podcast has served you, one way that you can support is by going online and making a one-time or recurring donation, or by purchasing something from our merch shop. As a thank you for being with us, we would love to offer you 10% off the merch of your choice. head to creative-tides.com/merch and use code podcast at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Every contribution helps us to keep hosting conversations, offering resources, and bringing that wisdom closer to home for you. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming videos, resources, or events. And thank you for being part of this work with us. Now let's get back to the conversation.
It's a great question, too. These are good questions, actually.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I definitely will always listen to the recording. What I really take away from that is the arrangement. And there is like a feel that comes with like a recording. And if there's like a question, like things will always sound different live. And that's one cool thing about being a live engineer is that you can really help steer that, you're kind of producing the live show in a way. So there's a lot of like leeway there, and you could definitely make it sound very different than the recording if you wanted to do that. Generally speaking, I will take the recording and replicate it. I have it in my head. I'll listen to it. I'll know the arrangement at least. Like you should always do that as an engineer. You should know what parts, if different people are singing different things, if different people are playing different parts instrumentally, like you should have an idea and know what to expect, just so you're not flying blind. But I will definitely. So what I like to do is I like to take what people are doing on stage, and I really try to just take what they're doing and just literally amplify it without changing it too much. Like if you have to like make any tweaks to like some of the individual sound or something, it's really just to like get it all to be cohesive. But I don't like, I'm not going to put like a different kind of distortion on the guitar player or like, something like that really like changes what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like I have no interest to do that. I'm facilitating what they're doing on stage, and I just want to make it louder and just make sure it translates correctly. So I'm usually just literally what I'm doing is like, we'll start playing a song live. I've listened to the arrangement. I'll turn up the faders, make sure all the instruments are sounding like they are intending to sound like, from the musician, and start there. And then just kind of put it together and make sure it's, it's tight and it's polished and it sounds like it should.
Yeah.
Like what they're doing, Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you find since you are a drummer, are the drums the hardest thing for you to mix? Like, are you really picky about how the drums sound?
Ooh. I do care very much about how the drums sound for sure. Drums and vocals are like the thing I think they have to sound good. Like the source has to sound good. And if one of those things does not sound good, the whole mix is going to suffer. Like it's kind of weird, but like a kick drum and a snare drum and a hi-hat, like, which is like the fundamental like beat or groove, the foundation of everything. Like if those don't sound okay, if they don't sound good, like no matter what you do, no matter how amazing the guitar sound, they're just not going to sound good. Like the whole mix is just not going to sound as good. So yes, drums are definitely something I paid close attention to. Yeah, I'm lucky. I've always been able to work with great drummers, like, who care about what their drums sound like and how they're playing. Yes, but then again, I do care about everything, and it goes back to being a perfectionist.
Yeah,
I'm a weirdo, but like I do. Yeah, I care about all of it, but yeah, drums. Being a drummer, like definitely in my head, like I'm probably paying.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I might have lost your audio there at the end. Are you still with me? Okay. So I can't hear you anymore.
Can Can you hear me now?
Okay, yes, I can hear you now. There we go.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
This is great.
You're good. So one of the things that I think a lot of sound guys in the local church struggle with, that we get questions about is, and you don't have to go like super in depth because obviously we're just talking over Zoom and you don't have like a drum kit in front of you, but do you have like an overview recommendation about how to mic drums and even like types of mics and like general placement that you like when you're miking drums?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the like and live, like we use very standard mics. We do not go crazy. We usually use like a Beta 91 on the inside of a kick drum, which is like almost always the mic that I'll use for the kick drum, which is a Shure mic. And we use like a D6 or like a Beta 52 on the outside of the kick drum, 57 on snare, top and bottom, which is like so boring, but it's like it's like the most, basic, but it always sounds great to me. Yeah. Like I don't try anything crazy. The only thing that we'll use, like, that we might go step on a limb would be like some AKG 414s, like for overheads. Those mics are expensive. They do sound really good. But then again, like, I mean, some pencil condenser mics can sound phenomenal on overheads. Like, I've never been, I would just say, like, always start at the drum, like make sure the source sounds good. Mm-hmm. People who are halfway in audio engineering have probably heard that ad nauseum. Make sure the source sounds good. But it really is true. Like, it's remarkable what you can do with plugins these days and like processing and DSP. Like, I mean, especially as like neural networks and AI training, like make this more and more advanced. Like, it's crazy, how you can manipulate a sound even in real time. But besides all that, you can save yourself so much time and energy and effort and have a much better final product if you just make sure your drums are tuned up. They have new drum heads if they need them. And they sound good when you're just sitting there hitting it, If it doesn't sound good with you sitting there hitting it, it's not going to sound good, amplified through speakers. Yeah. It'll only sound worse. So, yeah, I would just say, like, I would much rather have like a great sounding drum kit and really cheap microphones. That's going to get you so much farther down the road. I mean, I would literally take that, even with Tomlin out on, some great equipment that we have. I would take a great sounding drum kit and a good drummer and the most cheap microphones you could possibly buy. That's going to get me so much farther down the road than like, dropping a bunch of money on mics and having a crappy sounding drum kit. So, yeah.
I know we're dwelling a lot on drums specifically, but I didn't know that you were a drummer before. And so I love when we have sound guys who are also musicians. I love kind of bridging the two. I think sometimes, especially in the local church, it can almost feel like two separate worlds. And that's something I try to be really mindful of at our church and in my ministry is we don't want worship and tech to feel like two isolated teams, especially when it comes to instruments and sound, vocals and sound. One doesn't have a job without the other. And so we're really trying, even though you have a physical gap in the room of, platform to sound booth, typically in the back of your room, we try really hard to not have, even though there's physical distance, to not have like a dynamic of distance or separation. And so I love when I have a sound guy who is a musician, because you can understand and talk each other's language. But I also have been interested in learning more about sound as a worship leader. I would encourage other worship leaders to just know basics of sound so that you can better speak the same language. With that, I'd love for you to speak to that dynamic of sound engineer to musician. Obviously you want a great source. You want, a good set of drums. The mics, you can have the gold standards. Doesn't mean they have to be super expensive. How much are you speaking to maybe how your drummer is playing, or, often we'll have guitar players who come in with a big pedal board and lots of effects. Does that make your job harder, or how do you speak their language and also like best represent them, I guess, without kind of confining them too much in a box?
So, super great point you bring up. It's one that's very often overlooked. A good friend of mine, Jeff Sandstrom, has like done courses on this because he's like really been a champion of this whole thing of like bridging the gap between people on stage and people like, in the back doing production or whatever. The main thing, like, you absolutely are correct. There is not one without the other. I was just talking to one of our guys on the bus the other night, like one of the guys in the band. It's funny because you can have the most killer musicians on the planet who are so well rehearsed and have spent, weeks pouring into like a show or a set list or production, like music production around all that, and like have it totally nailed down. But if you have like specifically like a front of house guy who is not on the same page, or who just doesn't care or whatever, all that work is basically for nothing, because that person can like completely change all like everything that's coming from stage, which is crazy. And you have to like have a lot of trust in that person. If you're on stage, you have to know, their goals, and it's helpful to know what they're trying to do. And if you're aligned, if there's trust there and the relationships are aligned, then it's the best thing ever. Everyone's on the same page. We have the same common goal here. This is the target. Let's keep each other even accountable. A lot of times, like the guys in Tomlin's band are they're very open to like feedback from me, which is I'm super grateful for, because not everybody's always like that. I'm definitely, I try to be like, I'm not going to like bring up every little thing because that would be annoying, but like big picture wise, like if something is not translating, or, if something can really be improved, I won't hesitate to appropriately mention it to that person. Usually like as a, like, as a side conversation. I'm not going to like stop rehearsal and be like, hey, bass player, like that note you keep hitting is wrong. Like that would be really unprofessional, But we have like a relational equity to be able to do that. And then the same thing goes for them and me. I post board mixes after every single show. So if they want to go back and listen to it, they can. And that holds me accountable too, because like, if I tell them I'm trying to get it to sound one way, but I'm not doing that, then, that doesn't do anybody any favors. So, it's definitely a two-way street, but if you can have that accountability and that trust with people doing production and doing the people on stage, and that's not just like your audio people, that's could be lighting, video, like, I mean, the whole, someone running lyrics even, if, it all comes together, and it all, makes one big, it takes, literally everybody's individual skills and talents to pull together and make an event what it is. Because without everybody's individual, like, skill sets and abilities and what they're bringing to the table, like it's just not going to happen. So that was kind of a long-winded explanation there.
No, that's so good. It does bring up another question in my mind. So you mentioned having relational equity with your band, and you're obviously touring, you're doing, I can imagine, like really long days and lots of shows back to back. And I'd love to get into the touring life in a little bit, but you have that relational equity that's built, and that has come with time and working together. So what advice or encouragement would you give to the sound guy who is maybe new in their church and just starting, or the sound guy who is going out and, gigging in different music venues where bands are just coming in and out and they don't have the friendship built up? How can they still have somewhat of a relational equity in those situations?
I would say be a listener. I would say, everybody is going to have an opinion about something, but don't think that you know everything. I feel like I know nothing, and I've been doing this for a long time. When it comes to comments and feedback, and even how I approach other people and, bring up things or ask questions or make comments, I have to always keep in mind that I don't know everything. And coming from having that mindset can be disarming, and bring about good conversation. You want to have real conversation, because if people aren't being honest with each other, then that's just a waste of time. But if you can be honest, with other people, the people you're trying to build relationships and trust with, but do it in a way that's very constructive and disarming, that's the way to do it. I've seen a number of times. Maybe I've done this before. I don't know. I'm sure I probably have. It's been a long time. But if you come in hot and you're like, "Hey, dude, you can't do that." Blah blah blah. People are just like, "What? Who are you?" You're the sound guy. Don't tell me how to play drums, and I won't tell you how to run sound. That. That's a real feeling. For real. People will feel that way. And that's the last thing you want, because the moment that kicks off, you're kind of doomed. You got to start over and just say, okay, we all want this to be great. I need, this is what, the problems that I'm facing. How can you help me make this better? You know what I'm saying? I think it's just an attitude, and coming from the right place really goes a long way as far as establishing trust and starting to build that, that equity with, everybody in your team.
Yeah. Yeah. For the sound tech who is maybe just getting started, so it can feel very daunting, and you have this shiny board with all these buttons. You have all these musicians on stage that you are in charge of mixing well. And there's, obviously we talked about making sure your source is good. But then when you get to the board, you've got, and I didn't know that you previously worked at Waves, but you've got all these plugins you can add. You have ways that you can EQ. You've got compression. You have all these bells and whistles, literally. What's your workflow? And if you were, so it's kind of a two-pronged question. What's your workflow? And then for the new front of house engineer just starting, if they were to deep dive and get really good at one thing first, where would you have to start?
Sure. I'll answer that second question first.
Yeah.
The answer to that is be prepared. That's where you start first.
Okay.
Regardless of whatever you're using, be prepared. And what I mean by that is you will fail 100% of the time if you show up to an event, whether it's a church service, a rehearsal, whether it's a huge gig, whether you're doing a broadcast for sports, whatever. If you're not prepared when you show up, meaning do I have a show file ready? Is it patched? Do I have things in place, contingencies too? If the guitar player needs 2 inputs instead of 1, do I have those 2 inputs ready? Do I know how to use the console? If I don't, how can I learn it as well as I possibly can before I have to jump into this thing and people are going to be waiting on me to figure it out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That is the best advice I could ever give anybody. I mean, there's still times where I show up to something every once in a while and I'm not as prepared as I wish I was, or hadn't spent as much time on it as I should have. And, maybe I can hide it pretty well sometimes, but like sometimes it's like playing catch up and it's hard. And I can't tell you how many times where I've gotten into a tough situation, you know, people are waiting on me and I'm like flustered and I can't figure something out because when you have like a tense, like a time critical situation, that's compounded by like technical things. Like if you don't have like a clear head, like it's gonna be really tough. So, um, things will always come up. Issues will always come up. We had, I mean, like less than like 2 months ago, we had a show with Tomlin and our monitor console was acting up and it looked like we might needed a new console, like the engine in it was bad. It ended up not being the case, but like we were kind of scrambling to get another console in, and stuff like that will happen. But like if you're prepared and you can just kind of like just being prepared, in life in general, even outside of this conversation, like it just helps you keep a much more level head and be able to think clearer when you need to. When you're unprepared, it's like, it usually always shows. And people are like, oh man, this guy was not ready for this.
Yeah.
So that's like the one thing I can tell you. Or that's my only real advice probably.
Yeah. What was the show file? What is that? The first
show file. So like, yeah, if you're like most consoles have like offline software. So like I can pull up on my computer, like a whole show file. I can make one from scratch. So like if I'm going to do a gig with a certain band or like, an artist or go, mix this event for a church, I can load a show file, even an existing one that they already have going and tweak it, relabel it, patch it, have like my, all the routing done. I can see how it's being routed. So I can see, okay, if it's someone else's show file, I can take a look at it and kind of figure out the file. Like this is where I control, the effects, and this is where, the main, processing, bus processing is happening. Oh, there's compression on all these inputs. Like it's good to know, Yeah. It just helps you can see everything and prepare yourself for kind of what you're getting into.
Yeah.
So you're not doing it, with it on site while people are literally just looking at you, waiting for you to do whatever it is you're trying to do.
Yeah.
You can mitigate most of that by just doing it beforehand.
Yeah. I love that. That's good advice. So you do that beforehand, then walk us through my first question. Walk us through your workflow.
Oh man, it kind of depends. I mean, I'm an old man stuck in my ways, in every aspect of my life. But I'm so just from having worked with these guys, I know products on a very deep level. So I'm always using Digico, always using Waves, usually, as if I can, and Direct Out have a lot of processors that I use too. So like that's kind of the trifecta for me personally. I feel like I could do anything I needed with those products just because I'm so comfortable with them. Not that they're the right products necessarily to use by any means, because there's a lot of great products out there, but you just get really comfortable and familiar with what you use all the time. So that's the stuff that I use. And like workflows, I'm using like on Tomlin, like for our, main, like our full band shows, we have Digico consoles. I do a lot of like snapshots because Tim drum kit because Timmy, our drummer, like has all these. He's great. He has all this like crazy stuff like tambourine and clap stack and like we had bongos out like so like in order to like not have all these open mics all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to mute stuff whenever we're not using it just because it cleans up the audio a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a lot of automation and I did it to time code. So like we run, time code runs our whole show. So we, it comes from playback, but I run time code into the console and then trigger snapshots like mute, unmute, some fades, key changes for like vocal tuning. I do like light vocal tuning. So it's all automated. So I'm able to do that with Digico. And I direct out Prodigy rack that converts LTC linear time code that comes from the playback world into MIDI time code. So like the console can read it. I use it for, literally probably 12 other things. It does an insane amount of stuff. And then Waves, I have a ton of processing in Waves. So like almost, I would say 85% of like the processing that I'm doing, like EQ, dynamics, compression, effects, it's all done in Waves over SoundGrid on a SoundGrid server. So yeah. And then like every once in a while too, I'll take if we do like a little acoustic show, we don't need I don't need all this massive console automation as nice as it is. I just have like 4 inputs, like 2 vocals and 2 guitars and a keyboard. So I'll use Waves LV1 mixer. It's like Waves version of like an audio console, but it's software based in it just packs up. I could fly with it. I just really need my computer to, and a little control surface to run it. So sounds amazing. So that's what I use for that.
Yeah. So you guys are using playback for your shows and not Ableton to automate everything?
So we use Ableton. Ableton is the DAW that we use. And then all the tracks, I say playback, I just mean like generic, like
gotcha.
It's like we use Ableton. Ableton plays out all of our tracks.
Yeah.
So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
When you're doing a full show and not the acoustic one, what board do you gravitate towards?
We have, we had Digico Quantum 338s. We had two of those. And then this past tour, we kind of slimmed down a little bit and we did the 326s, which is literally the same console. It just minus a fader bank. So,
okay.
But the same deal. We actually, it's pretty remarkable, but we actually use almost every single input of that desk, even with like this Pulse update they have. I forget how many channels, but like I have like 112 channels like actively in use on my console.
Wow.
Yeah, we have like a pretty elaborate like communications talkback systems like that because communication is super important, especially when you're dealing with live sound or just live production.
Yeah.
If you don't have good communication, then it's going to be an uphill battle. So we spend a lot of time and we have a lot of inputs that are just talkbacks, between all the techs. Everyone has one, but if we're running, if we're in soundcheck and Gilder or MD and he wants to talk to the lighting operator or the video director, like he can do that and they can just immediately have a conversation. So it's important to have those lines there.
Yeah, that's cool. Does Chris Tomlin also have a button or anything on his mic where he can do talk back to you and the band?
So we did. So we got him one of those, which was like a little push button on his mic to be able to like talk to us if he needed to do that. But he wasn't. I don't think he was too much of a fan of it. I never really talked to him directly about it, which I should. I'll follow up with him, but I think like one time he hit it on accident. I can't remember where it was. It wasn't a big deal. No one really noticed, but it like kind of threw him off.
Okay.
It would throw me off, honestly. Like if I was up there and I was like, I don't know. I would, it would take me a long time to get used to that, honestly.
Yeah.
So we do. I mean, he has like a mic. We have like a stage talk back, like that's like kind of upstage. So like if he needs to talk to people like in between songs or something, he can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all pretty good at reading his mind though as well. So like if he's if he needs to communicate something, we usually can pick up on it.
Yeah. Does he typically like rehearse the song one way, and then when he gets in the moment, will he change where he wants to go on the song or like change dynamics, or is he a pretty like stays how you rehearsed it?
He's pretty much, he does, generally he'll stay with how we rehearsed it. He would be more prone though to like change songs.
Oh.
As opposed to like change the arrangement of a song.
Okay.
He's done both before for sure. And even, totally off the cuff. I mean, he'll go where he feels led to go. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, like the song arrangements are pretty safe. They kind of need to be. I mean, because we have they're time coded. So like, if we do deviate from like a normal arrangement, we got a disarm time code, and we'll kind of just roll with it, and we're prepared to do that 100%. But it would be way more likely that we'll finish the song and then he'll go to like a different song than what we have on our set list. And when that happens, we follow along. So it keeps us on our toes.
Yeah, for sure. So how did you get to where you are today? You mentioned you were a drummer in high school and then you interned in a studio out of high school. Like, how did you now you are Chris Tomlin's main front of house guy. How'd you get there?
Man, I would probably have to say, there's a really noisy car behind me, I think.
Oh, I can't hear it.
Oh, okay. I'm going crazy. I can hear it. I would have to say it was probably, I mean, I had been doing sound like for some friends, some like artists around town, doing some like Weekend Warrior stuff with them, going out of town, some events. And it was like, I would call it, I would say I was doing it professionally, I guess. I was just not very good. I was like really just starting out, like learning a ton of stuff too. But and then one day my friend Jacob called me. He started playing drums with Matt Redman. Mm-hmm. Jacob called me and said, "Hey, would you want to come out with us and do sound? Like, we don't have like an audio guy." I was like, "Sure. Yeah, I'll do that. That'd be great. I would love to." So I started doing that. And before I knew it, I was with that team for about 7 years, working with Matt and basically a bunch of my best friends. It was like so fun. It was like a highlight. It was a great time period. But I really started there through Matt. I kind of met a lot of people at Passion. I started doing a lot at Passion, Passion City Church too, here in Atlanta. I met Chris Tomlin and those guys, and like all through Passion, really. And that's kind of where I like really started. Like, I really kind of dug in and established myself as like, okay, this is like a career thing now. Like this is, again, God opened a lot of doors and really kind of, I just walked through the door. Like I wasn't really like advertising myself or like trying to get out, and I was grinding, I was working hard, but I was just kind of like going where I was the doors led, so to speak. So that's kind of where it really all started.
Yeah, I love that. That's kind of been a theme. You're the third interview for our podcast, but that has been a theme with some of the other guys we've talked to. Is it wasn't this elaborate self-promoting strategy. It was just being open as doors were open, being open to the opportunities and a lot of humility but working hard, like working super hard and like honing the skills, getting good at your craft because the passion is there for what you're doing. But it wasn't like, I am doing this so that it wasn't a means to an end, so that I can be on tour with, a famous worship artist and do stadium arena tours. That wasn't the end goal. It was, I'm passionate about this and I'm going to take the open opportunity. And so, it's been cool to hear that with different people and different experiences that has been a common theme.
For sure. That was cool.
Yeah. So what's one of the most rewarding things about the tour life and one of the most challenging things?
Man, rewarding, I would say maybe two things. One, being a part of like just seeing like even like a tangible way, like being a part of like these like experiences, like working for like a worship artist, like where you feel like there's so much more meaning and depth to what you're doing. And some of these nights, like not every night you'll feel it. And honestly, like, there'll be times in little like short seasons where you kind of feel like you don't really feel it so much and it just feels like a real job. But then something happens or you see something, you're reminded like, wow, like there's like this person came tonight and I just know for sure that they're leaving this event like a very different person. They like really like experience God in like a way they haven't before, or some like, it's hard to like really describe to you on a podcast, but like knowing, like seeing that and knowing that that's happening and, just feeling like peace about where you're at and like God has you right here for this time right now. Like that's a very rewarding thing. Being on a team, like, tour, when you tour around, like, you're with like the same 20 people for months. And not with them every single day, but I mean, some days you're with them for 4 or 5 days in a row, traveling with them, brushing your teeth with them. Like, I mean, it's just like, it's like life, and it becomes like a second family. And the camaraderie of being on a team is something I really enjoy. People are really great at what they do. And when you collectively bring all those things together to pull off an event, that's very rewarding for me. So answering the second part, what's the most challenging? I would probably say hands down is just being away from your family. That's really hard, especially like when kids are in the picture. It's I'm trying to like think of examples. Like we had the government shut down recently and they canceled some flights, and I was supposed to get home for my son's last football game, but then they canceled that flight. So I couldn't make his last football game, and I was really bummed. And he was sad when I told him I wasn't going to be able to be there. That was really hard. Like, I do think God gives us a lot of extra grace, even my family. It somehow works out pretty well still. Like I'm not trying to be gone. Like, Chris will do like maybe 60 shows a year, which is like, it's a good, when you factor in travel days and stuff, like it's a pretty good amount, but it's also like, it's still, it's still possible to have family life. I know, I have good friends that are, gone 120 days out of the year, and it's like, and even more. And I'm like, I don't know how they do it, honestly. That's just me. But being away from family is really tough. You definitely, the silver lining of that though is that when you're gone, you're gone. You still have FaceTime and stuff like that, so you can still remain connected, which is a big deal these days. But when you're home, it allows you to kind of be more intentional with your time, and not just waste it. So I don't know. I would almost rather do what I'm doing now than work a 9 to 5 and be home every single day, but like also kind of be checked out, you know?
Yeah.
Like I don't ever want to be checked out. Like, when I'm home with my kids, like we want to do fun stuff and I want to be present and not, you know, playing golf every day or like being on my phone, like,
Yeah.
staring into the abyss. So I don't know. It's a silver lining, but yeah, it's hard being away from home a lot when you're traveling.
Yeah, for sure. When you're not traveling, you're still on staff at Passion City currently?
No, no, I'm not on staff. I was on staff there for about 2.5 years full time. I was on staff. And then I kind of felt the tug of like maybe getting back into like traveling a little bit more. I don't know. But it was being on staff there was amazing. I was super grateful. I still am around there quite a bit. Ashton, some of my best friends are there. Crazy respect for like Louis and Shelly Giglio and the whole crew. So, yeah, I love fashion. Still around there. But yeah, I'm full. Like I'm actually technically I'm full time with Chris.
Okay.
So that is like my real job.
Yeah.
So, which again, I'm super grateful for. Like, again, that's something like God's worked out somehow. I mean, stars aligned and it all happened. But I'm really grateful for that team, and I have like a normal job through them. So
yeah. Yeah. One of my last questions for you is, so having, you've worked at the church, you're now on tour. Kind of one of my things in the church is, especially if you are on staff at the church, there's this like Sunday is always coming. And sometimes the grind of that, it can be really easy to fall into like just the patterns and rhythms, and you're just kind of like going through the motions. So what encouragement would you give to, church sound guy, or like you're in a similar season where it's show, like night after night? How do you not fall into the trap of just it becoming like repeating the same motions over and over?
yeah, great question. Specifically for like if you're working with a church, which I can definitely relate. I would say like it's really healthy to like step out of that environment once in a while. Like like in two ways. Like one, like maybe attend church and not work on a Sunday. And I know that that's easier said than done, because if you're not there, like who's going to do it? You have to you have to line that up and put people in place for that to happen. But it's really good to like, I think, attend, especially with your family maybe, and it gives you a different perspective, where you're like just truly not doing anything. You just show up, take your kids like everybody else, drop them off and like go and just attend and just take in instead of like give. I think that's important. And another thing, even beyond that, is once in a while, like go to a different church. Like it's very, and some organizations would be like, what the heck are you talking about? Which, I can understand, but I'm just saying like, it's good to get yourself out of that environment, because I mean, it's happened to me before many times. You just get so like your head down and you just get so like entrenched in what you're doing. It's hard to like, and especially if you're like leading a team, I feel like it's really healthy to just have like a reset every once in a while, not all the time, but like, take a week or maybe even 2 weeks off and like, go see how other people are doing things. Like if you're like, despite this, the smartest people don't have answers to all the questions. Nobody's necessarily doing it the right way. Like, there's so many different ways to do things. And, if you're anything like me, I feel like, I am stuck in my ways, but like I do also have a very open mind. And I really try to like, if somebody has offers or shows a better way of doing something or a different way of doing something, like it's very interesting, and it definitely helps you get out of like the cyclical, like, rinse and repeat, like rhythm and routine. Um, and maybe, if you're in charge of programming and stuff like that, like at a church, like change it up, like do something different, like just do like an acoustic, like Passion did like an acoustic worship for like a month. It was like 3 or 4 weeks straight.
Oh.
And it was awesome. It was like so basic and stripped back, but it was like much needed. It was like so refreshing. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, don't be afraid to like step on a limb, try new things. Um, you know, it's tough. Like when you get into like that cycle, cause I know what you're saying. It's not a super healthy place to be. You can't be there too long without it becoming really unhealthy. So, you know, schedule it, like put in your schedule or your calendar, like, force yourself to like take a break, stop, go do something else. Have a reset.
Yeah, that's so good. Very good advice. Well, if people wanted to learn more about you, your work, where could they go?
Man, I don't know. I don't have too many resources available.
You mentioned
Maybe Instagram.
some live albums through Apple Music that you guys recently did. What are some of your most recent albums you've worked on? Some live albums.
We did some Apple Music releases with Tomlin. Tomlin did a thing with Ben Fielding. It was about this. It's on YouTube. If you search Chris Tomlin, Ben Fielding, that'll show up.
Okay.
Instagram might be a good thing. Like I am kind of on Instagram, although you won't see me post very often. Or when I do, it'll be like a week straight, and then I won't check it for 3 months. But yeah, I'm on Instagram as well. So, and always like feel free to like if you find me on Instagram, send me messages. Like I'm more than happy to respond and answer any questions outside of this follow-ups to this conversation or frankly anything. So.
I love it. We'll be sure to link that information. So, well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been really interesting to talk with you and hear your perspective, and I've learned a few things. So just really appreciate you taking the time today.
Right. Well, thanks, Ashley. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the great podcast. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Creative Tides podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow us on social media so you don't miss any upcoming videos, resources, or events. If you'd like to support Creative Tides, including events like workshops or tools like this podcast, head to our website, creative-tides.com, to make a donation or purchase merch. Thanks so much for being a part.